The phrase used to be, tennis anyone? Now, of course, it is tennis everyone. And with the money you can save making our beautiful tennis outfits, you can hire that handsome pro for private lessons. So, stick around. We're going to have a lot of fun.
So What's New? Starring Vogue sewing authority, George W. TRIPPON.
Now, of course, we've pre-assembled one dart. We have to pre-assemble a lot of things, you know, because we learn one good thing at a time. And the very good thing we are learning now is the dart. Notice it's been marked so you can see it. Also, please, you'll notice the end of the dart. Now, ladies, here is where you associate. It's a terrible word, associate. No, I don't mean with bad characters. I mean you associate this dart with you. And the dart is for the bust area. And the bust curves. So watch, please, because this is the most important part in sewing in the dart. We start at the end here, plant the needle, your regular stitching here, and then start sewing. And when the dart is marked, such as this one, you just run that marking line right through the needle area. And look, we're going to be coming off absolutely to nothing as we curve there. Because when we finish too, I prefer you trim there, but here leave a long thread because I like to tie my threads at the end. 2 knots is sufficient, please. And when you've done the second knot, just trim to 1/4 inch. And we've come off to nothing, so that this will mold itself where it's supposed to mold itself over what it's supposed to mold itself to, you know. You know what I'm talking about. Now, we take the front, lay right side up. I have taken the back from back here, and of course we've pre-assembled our darts. And notice I now lay my shoulder seams together. Once again, I do match the seams where the stitching takes place, and I've made little, very little notches in there. Not slashes. There, slash the fabric. Oh, my Lord. A notch, if you ever clip into the fabric, and of course there are some fabrics that fray, those fabrics you mark with the chalk or with the thread mark. But on fabrics that don't fray much, you can do it this way, as I have done. But really, there should never be more than maybe 1/8 of an inch at the most. And I'll pin this side. I am pin basting. For those of you who are starting sewing, I would suggest, of course, that you would also baste across here by thread and needle. Now we start sewing. Lay this down under here, plant the needle, hold the thread if you feel you have to. And let's say we feel we have to, shall we? Let's talk to yourself. Now, when you come near the end here, people always complain that the seams come out. Take a shorter stitch. While that's at the short stitch here, pick this up, pull it out slightly. Where are you? There you are. Then pick the other shoulder here while you still have this short stitch on the machine, and then stitch across there at the end into your seam, and then continue into your regular seam. I prefer this in many instances to your going back and forth on the machine and back tacking, as they call it, because some people, and when you come near the end here, also give yourself a couple of short stitches and go back to your natural stitch here. Now, of course, at this point, too, you will please press your shoulder seams open. All right, hot little hands here. Press, press, press. Oh, press, 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 press. Isn't that lovely? You'll do it with a hot iron, though, huh? At the ironing board, of course. Now, of course, in following the instructions, you find that we have our facings here, and we lay the garment right side up, of course, and then we lay our facings to this, matching, of course, notches. Oh, that's for that armhole. So you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. In fact, nobody should ever go wrong after they pass the age of 16. You can go wrong up to the age of 16, but after 16, I'm sorry. It's like all those marvelous things, you know, you read about. You know, like Lincoln said once, I didn't know what he meant until I looked in the mirror once. I said, you know, a man is responsible for what his face looks like after he's 35 years old. And I was 18 when I read that, and I could hardly wait to be 35 so I could look in the mirror and see what he was talking about. Now, I found out what he was talking about. Now, of course, we come over on this side, and notice how I pin baste, please. Right side to right side, like that lovely song. Right side to right side and shoulder to shoulder. That must be a war song, I think. Now, here, make sure that your shoulder seams are open, and they are open. I'm pinning them open. You, of course, have pressed them, and we're matching notches here. And then we are going to be stitching. This is the armhole facing. So you bring it under the machine, and you start stitching, following your instructions, of course, your 5/8 inch seam allowance here. And I am looking over here on the outside edge of the 5/8 here. You never watch the needle. I am coming over here to the shoulders. They're open, good. That is, the shoulder seam is open of the dress. And I stitch all the way down here, 5/8 of an inch seam, to this other mark that I have on the garment. Undo, tournez-vous, and redo. Encore. Encore. There. And then start stitching at 5/8, please. Continue here. I'm watching the outside edges there. The shoulders are open, are they, George? Yes, they're open. Lovely. Then we continue on over to here, 5/8 of an inch seam, please. Here, a lot of times you might want to lift up the needle and go back on each of your seams, but 2 stitches, and darlings, always go back in exactly the same seam, not on one side of it or the other side. Otherwise, don't do it. Take a shorter stitch at that point. Now, of course, we will clip here, and we trim away any long hair. Please don't have anything hanging around that isn't supposed to hang. Of course, you know, the kids, they have a new expression. Oh, let it all hang out, I think this is. We don't let any threads hang out here at all. Now, you see our facings are on, and we're going to be ready for the same step. And, of course, while I'm trimming here, I'm going to be right back. So please don't go away. Have a lovely cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I'll be back. So, please. Now, of course, you know, these are actually square armholes. It comes here and then square across. Now, we have put the facing on, and we're going to clip straight across to the end of that stitching line area there, both at the front and the back of the garment. And then we always trim away to 1/4 of an inch, as I am doing here. Trim, 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 trim. And then, of course, we are going to understitch that. You'll watch that. I always like to do everything at once. By everything at once, I mean if I trim that side, I like to trim this side. Then I sew that side and I sew this side. I have a rhythm. Rhythm. Huh. Have you got rhythm? I got rhythm, 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 rhythm. And you've got to pick up a rhythm when you are sewing. And notice, too, how I am cutting flat on the table. Flat, 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 flat. Well, all right, idiot George TRIPPON, you should have clipped first, but you can clip after too. See what I mean about common sense, really? Honestly. Now, the seams are laying to my right. The garment is up, and then I lay my facing over there, and the seams are still that way, laying the same direction as the facing. And then I bring this down in here, and I stitch. Now, the secret of stitching close to a fold edge like this is to bring this fold edge just inside the presser foot. Mine curves around, some of yours will be square, but bring it just inside and just off the edge of the needle there. And that's what I'll be watching, the edge of that presser foot. As I stitch here, I can take a little longer stitch on this because this, as I said, is called understitching. Now, understitching is very important on facings, because we use this a lot, and if you follow the instructions on the patterns, which are just marvelous, this prevents the facing from rolling back up to the right side of the garment. Because, darlings, if anything ever rolls any which way, like the dice roll in Las Vegas, I wish I knew what they meant. I don't know how to play that game. You roll, make sure it rolls inside, because look how beautiful. When this comes back to the right side, that will never roll out. And there's nothing uglier than, you know, facings that roll out. Roll out the barrel. That's the only thing you should ever roll out is the barrel. Barrel beer. Good beer. I don't like beer unless it's ice cold. Never liked beer. So don't ever send me any beer, girls. I'm a bourbon man. Bourbon. Please, tape, stay where you are. I wouldn't tell you to roll. See, I said roll out the barrel and the tape start rolling up, really. You're supposed to be a guide for my stitching. Please, stay where you are. Now I am stitching here. All right, that does it. I'll take no nonsense from you. Absolutely none. So there, see? Out, out, out. Away with you. No roll tape, please. Sorry. All right, now that we've done this, I take the side section. This is a square armhole part. See, square, 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 square. And I have marked here the areas in between which the belt will be lying. Laying. Where's that dictionary? And then actually pin that belt and stitch it so it will be there for you when you need it, when you are ready for it. And we'll be ready for it shortly. And then, of course, trim away all these edges here. Then we also will be doing this underarm edge here. This is the underarm facing of the square armhole. If you're watching, are you watching? Good. I'm making a shorter stitch here near the ends. Then I'm going to a regular stitch, taking my full 5/8 seam allowance. And if you follow the instructions properly, where are the head of the pin? There it is. If you have followed your instructions as you should, I'm taking a shorter stitch, then you know that you only sew between these two marks. And on the pattern, this mark is square for the square armhole, and this is diamond-shaped for the diamond you'll get when you meet that pro who's going to teach you all these lovely tennis lessons, let me tell you. I'm folding this out of the way, you see, for the moment, and I'm going to pin it there for the moment. You'll see why shortly. Now here we do the same thing, please. Clip and then trim. Clip and trim. Clip, clip, and trim. Out. Don't need that. Oh. That's right. Household help is hard to get today, George. Get yourself a wastebasket. There's certainly a wastebasket in there, really. All that. And then we are understitching, it is called. And that is so when you have your square armhole, this thing will not roll up. What thing? Well, what thing am I talking about? What thing have I been talking about all along? The facing thing. That's the thing I've been talking about. If you'd listen, you won't worry about it. What thing? What thing? Really? Well, you have to be very explicit, you know. I'm juicy today. You know, I read in a book that when you're juicy, you're very healthy. I'm the healthiest guy in town, let me tell you. Now, of course, notice how beautifully that is going to lay back. It just automatically lays back like that. And, of course, I'll be preparing this segment now for the side section here, as we have done our armhole facing. I'm going to pin this down for me to hold it there for me. I always prepare the next step, and then look, look what's sticking up there. Oh, looks like two little rabbit ears, look like a little canoe. Oh, down the river we will go, down the river we'll go. And then, of course, you're going to be getting this section ready, because that will be sewing into this section. So, I'm getting this all ready here for my other seams. I'm turning this and pinning it. Prepare everything, darlings. The more you prepare things in advance, the better they are. You know, some people don't prepare in advance. It's like, did you ever see that sign? What sign? I'm thinking of a sign. It doesn't come to me. Come sign. Plan ahead sign. That's it. Plan ahead. And the person start writing in larger letters, and they finally ran out of space. So it went down to nothing, you know, like plan ahead. No head, no head, no head. Notice how I pin all this. Now this is very, very important. This is what you call underfacing and trimming, and notice by clipping we have exposed the seams so we can do our next step. And of course in the next step we'll be sewing the square section to the front and the back sections. I'll be right back. Now, of course, we're still working on that lovely tennis dress. And I am pinning this belt out of the way in between the side panel because I don't want to get caught in one of the seams. Have you ever been caught in a seam? Oh, don't ever get caught in a seam, let me tell you. Because there's nothing worse, so I'm pinning this all out of the way. Now, one other thing, ladies, as I match these seams, oh, such an idiot sometimes, but at least I admit it, say. Because, you know, it was like that woman who had a son named Idiot, or was it Elliot? Anywho, remember that little protrusion I was telling you about? Forget it. Blood, and it's not blue, mind you, it's red. Bring it down under, because when we bring it up into the seam area here, it will lay right to the corner here of the facing. So you bring that side section right up in there so it'll form the square, right to that notch, and away we will go. Now, of course, as you people know, I have pin basted. Come. Oh, sorry. Out. That tape, really. Get some other kind of a gadget. Tape. Tape. I'll show you tape. Now, we sew the 5/8 inseam allowance here. We are sewing the side seam section. It's not quite the side seam. It's off the side seam. It's like in this area. What I call a recessed bust seam and a recessed back dart seam. And you can call it what you like. Now watch. When I come up to this section here, I make sure this facing is out of the way. Make sure all these seams are together and everything is butted, like a goat butts a can or something, you know. And then come right to that point. And please, at this point, shorten your stitch so that that won't be ripping out. Lovely. Oh, George, it's just lovely. There. Now, you see what's going to happen here. These seams do not get pressed open. They get pressed laying in that direction. So that as we work this facing, you see where we had clipped that facing before? And thread whatever are you doing there. You are not part of this garment anymore. I'm sorry. No loose threads, please. This folds back and then lays along here. Oh, the inside is so gorgeous that honestly, if your tennis dress does fall off, it'll look just as lovely outside as inside. Or just as lovely outside as inside. So be careful how you use that racket, darlings. And the same thing here. You'll notice, remember that little protrusion when I was talking about the little boat sailing away? Oh, forget it, George. I guess I didn't read my directions right, because I see it really isn't necessary. And once again, I bring that and I lay it over to here. Get the facing out of the way and notice that you are kissing this edge to that edge. Yes, anytime two things make a contact, that's a kiss, honey. Naturally. Well, I don't know what kind of kisses you were brought up. Now look, see all that belt in there? See, it hasn't been caught to anything yet. But of course, I'll wait before I talk. Good heavens. Sometimes I take all kinds of precautions and, caution has gone to the wind. Pins, where are you? Notice I always reach in the pin box very gently. And I always pull out a few pins very gently. I match my pin down to here, again gently. Now pin when you are pinning, please, midway now. I'm going to repeat that you pin with only the tip of the pin. The head of the pin is out, the dress is towards you, or the garment's towards you, and the seams are away from you. Of course, you have to put yourself in my place. What a lovely spot to be in. It's lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, now you pull that aside, and again we start stitching, but not with the facing. Get the facing out of the way. Put the seam where you can see it. Don't catch seams into the seams that they don't belong to. You catch only the seams that belong to each other. And if you follow the directions, and if you're watching me, now drop this and make a shorter stitch again, manually. Oh my God, it's too short, George TRIPPON. It won't even move. There, then come up here, and then away you go. Now, of course, I have this little hole in the machine, and that hole I've measured, and I know that's 5/8 of an inch seam. So I'm taking my 5/8 of an inch seam all the way through there. I'm coming to the belt area, and we have pre-stitched that belt, so make sure that you are sewing to hide that other seam. Lovely. And you see the belt now has a double whammy in there. The first stitch to the one part of the garment, now the double stitch. So it's really in there to stay. So as you play tennis and keep losing those pounds and that waistline, but don't lose your figure, please. Notice when I come near the end, a shorter stitch and it won't come out. Lovely. You'll notice too when I pull the thread, I always pull the thread with the feed dog way up and your thread won't break. I leave the thread long so that when the needle comes down, I don't have to thread my needle. All the things you learn. Hope you read your books so you'll know all these things. Now look, please. Here's the inside of the square armhole. Oh, shut up, for goodness sake. I oiled you yesterday. You don't need any more today, sorry. Oil? I'll have to go to Arabia next time I oil you. Now look. Here's that lovely square. This lays this way. You fold back the facing. And of course this will be tacked and slip stitched by hand. Oh, lovely. You do that, of course, to all the armholes. Oh, I've done it. Oh, I'm telling you, I can't stand it. And then, of course, pinned in here. And look, darlings, isn't it lovely? You have your square armhole set in, and your belt has not been stitched into the seam. And this is how I expect you to do it. So you can rest for a minute, because I'll be right back, and I'll show you. You will finish your own hem here and your own neckline. And of course the pattern comes with the lovely little set of panties. I won't show them to you, but you get the pattern. And the outfit is really lovely. The square armhole and of course this chow.
Promotional consideration furnished by Vogue Patterns and Unique Zippers.
The phrase used to be, tennis anyone? Now it's tennis everyone. And with the money you save making this Vogue tennis dress pattern 8549, you can hire that handsome tennis pro to give you private lessons. It's so easy to make, and it looks so great on the court. I guarantee you'll score the first point. Get Vogue pattern 8549 wherever Vogue patterns are sold. I've told you about it. Now it's yours, serve.